Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. It's funny, I was just listening to one of my recordings this week, and I say this in every intro. I'm excited to be here today, and I was like, maybe I should change that up. But no, I am really super excited to be here today with my guest, Yvette. And the reason why is that Yvette had been mentioned to me multiple times on who I should have on here, who I really need to get to know. And so I'm really excited that you are here today and we can have this conversation and really just get to know you. I can't wait. So thank you for being here.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, great. So let's go ahead and get started. Where in the world are you coming from? Where in the country are you at?
Currently, right now, I'm in South Carolina.
Okay, all right. I have been there once.
Okay, yeah.
I was going
It's a
to say it was
beautiful
last
state.
year, but it was probably 2 years ago. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, I had a great time.
Okay.
Yeah. So have you always been in South Carolina?
No, actually, my home state is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I'm a Steelers fan.
Okay, all right. And how long have you been away from Pittsburgh?
Oh my gosh, it's been about 25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And did you start out, did you go to Pennsylvania or did you go to school somewhere else?
No, I went to college in Erie, Pennsylvania, Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, right outside of Erie, Pennsylvania, small town, small college
Okay.
state town. And it was 2.5 hours away from Pittsburgh. So I was away for college, but not quite a
Mm-hmm.
drastic long
Mm-hmm.
distance, just to give you a little
Mm-hmm.
taste of independence, as my mother used to say.
Yep. I can relate to that very, very much so, actually, and
Mhm.
almost about the same amount of distance I went away. I grew up in San Diego,
Mhm.
away to school in Los Angeles, and it was just far away and close enough to head home if I needed to. I can
Yep,
totally relate to that.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so what did you go to school for? What did you go to college for?
Nursing. I went to
Yeah,
college for
yeah.
Edinburgh for
Right,
nursing. I
huh?
did. So right after I graduated in high school, I applied.
Mhm.
My goal was to go to the University of Pittsburgh,
Okay.
and I got accepted, but no scholarships. So I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work. And then I remember, even though it's been years, I remember a guidance counselor. She said, apply to this college. And I said, well, Edinburgh. I said, I'm thinking of London, something like that. And she said, no, it's a state school. It's
Mm-hmm.
in Pennsylvania. And so I
Mm-hmm.
applied and I ended up getting a 4-year scholarship.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know if
Hmm.
I don't know if I've talked to anyone on here that's gotten. So maybe someone can correct me if I have talked to someone who has also gotten a scholarship. I might have talked to one person that has gotten a scholarship, but it
Hmm.
is pretty rare to hear that. So that's well done. Well done. That's
Yeah, it
great.
is. Hmm.
Did
Yeah,
you
I was
have
super
to?
excited.
Yeah, was it it was based on merit? Did you have to jump through hoops to get it? I mean,
No, I didn't. So back then, things are different now compared to,
yeah,
over 30 plus years ago.
sure.
So I applied, and that was based off of your academics and your extracurricular activities. So
Mhm.
my high school, we had a vocational type of program. So you had the
Mm-hmm.
choice between home ec, wood
Yep.
shopping,
Yep.
auto mechanic, barbering, or healthcare, such as the CNA program. So I chose the CNA program.
Okay. Okay.
So when I graduated from high school, I already was a certified nursing assistant. And
Ah.
then that summer I worked as a CNA, and I fell in love with it. And I applied to Edinburgh University of
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. Now the name has since changed, of course.
Mm.
But yes, I did get a 4-year scholarship. So it was based off of your extracurricular activities
Sure.
and your grades, your academics.
Yeah. I love that. Those kind of stories are actually what I think that are memorable, make us memorable. I don't know, because we all have little tiny differences in how we started. I know I can relate to the extracurricular home ec. I remember going to home ec, and I remember wood shop, and I remember those things. I don't
Hmm.
think that healthcare was offered, um, but yeah, I remember those days, those vocational classes that you took,
Hmm.
and I remember making a pillow in home ec that looked like a telephone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
It
exactly.
was like, I can make a pillow
Mhm.
that looks like a telephone. This is great.
Yes,
What a
yes,
great skill
yes, exactly,
to
exactly,
have.
exactly.
Okay, so you worked in high school. Then you worked as a CNA, which is pretty darn impressive, to do that in high school. And you loved it, so you knew that healthcare was calling your name, and so you go into nursing school. And again, the reason why I think I was so surprised is because back then, I'm not that far behind you in that, or maybe I'm right around the same same era. Um, it wasn't very common, at least on the West Coast, it wasn't very common that there were nursing programs right out of high school. Most
Hmm.
nurses that I knew of either, um, it was like their second career, or they had, done, their journey was a little different and then ended up in nursing, but it was very rare to come right out of high school. Nowadays, the majority of nurses that I interview here on the podcast that are younger, a lot of them go straight into nursing. So I
Hmm.
always like to hear people's stories, because it typically is, either you came from a different era where you started off and you kind of went in a different direction, and then you ended up in nursing, in this new era where people just come right out of high school and go straight into nursing. I find fascinating, because my journey was a long journey before I ended up in nursing, and something that I didn't
Hmm.
quite plan. So,
No,
um,
true, true,
I love hearing stories like that. Okay, so you
true.
started so you went to nursing school, and what was that program like for you? Did
It
you,
was, it was a good program. I really, really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
uh
Hmm.
huh,
It was a very good program. It was a 4-year degree, so I had my
yeah,
bachelor's degree. And
hmm
I liked the program because we started clinicals freshman, second semester in a nursing home. So just your basics, learning how to
right,
feed, turn patients, getting to have that
right,
conversation so you're not too afraid when you start the med surge and passing medication
hmm
stage of it. But it was a very good school. It was a very competitive
mm
curriculum, I think, just like any nursing programs
hmm
are.
hmm
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I have some fond memories, of course,
hmm
socially and academically. I
hmm
remember one professor, uh, uh, Miss Five, she's now a PhD, but she really impressed me because she still worked as
hmm
a registered nurse in the ER, in the emergency room, but she also was a
hmm
full time instructor. So she always stayed
mm
up to date. And I'm like, I want to be like
hmm
her one day. And
right,
then she went back for her PhD, her doctorate, because back then we didn't have the DMP program. It was just PhD only.
Right.
And she graduated with her PhD and still continued to work at the clinical side. So I was very,
Mm-hmm.
very impressed with her. And so I really enjoyed that piece of it. And
Yeah.
from the social standpoint, college is college. I joined the
Right.
sorority, had a
Right.
phenomenal
Right.
time with my sorority sisters. But that's the
Right.
that's the beauty of going away to college, so you can
Oh,
have
absolutely.
both of those experiences. Yeah, yes,
Yeah, I totally agree too. For my
yeah,
personal experience as well, and I said the same thing to both my daughters. Go away. You will not regret it. And I actually had a conversation with my youngest, who is a freshman in college, away in San Diego. So she went opposite, and we've already talked about the fact that that was the kind of the best decision that we could have chosen, is to just go far enough, little bit of ways, but just you get to be independent, and you create this whole new life. So I'm a big fan of that.
true, true.
Okay, so you had the tour that you clearly remember, and she had taken her career into something above and beyond, and so and you said that that's something that you wanted to do. So early on, you were aspirational to be something, you know, uh, beyond just your typical. I don't want to say that; it sounds so degrading, but your typical floor nurse. But you just wanted to. You wanted to go far, right, from the beginning. Is what
True,
it sounds like.
true. Right,
Okay.
exactly.
So what did that trajectory look like? You go to nursing school, and then what?
Then we have to sit for our NCLEX.
Yep.
Well, that was a challenging time for me because
Yeah.
guess what, Anna? I didn't pass the first time.
Ah. Okay.
Guess what, Anna? I didn't
Interesting.
pass the second time.
Interesting. Okay.
Guess what, Anna? I didn't pass the third time. I
Okay.
finally passed.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and that was very, very challenging for me. I was on another podcast probably 2 years ago, and
Mhm.
that was my first time actually verbalizing it out loud
Mm.
because you
Yeah.
become shamed, you feel a little embarrassed.
Absolutely. Yep.
And back then, uh, nurses, you were able to work as a GN, as a graduate nurse, pass medications, and you had your salary as a nurse until you passed your NCLEX. Well,
Mhm.
it was very challenging because when you're I was working in a critical care area, so
Mhm.
you let everyone know you were passed, you were taking and studying for your NCLEX, and then when you failed, oh my gosh, the guilt and the shame and the
Sure. Yeah.
disappointment, and oh, it was just horrendous. But I marched on. I carried through. I studied. I bought. Back then we had CD-ROMs. I was in the
Mhm.
library. I made it a full-time job, even though I was still working.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't my thing initially. So it took me several tries to past my NCLEX. And I don't know if most folks realize that about me, but it wasn't an easy test. It was
No,
not an easy
you know
exam for
what?
me at all.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you share that, actually. I feel honored that you share that, because I do know of people that happened. I have a dear friend of mine whose brother went through 4 years in school and took it multiple times and gave and said it's not for me. And I just thought,
Mhm.
I can't imagine going through 4 years for your bachelor's and trying multiple times. But at the same time, I can see that, because you
Mhm.
just think that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to pass it
Right.
right off the bat, right?
Exactly.
And if
Exactly.
you take it
Mhm.
multiple times, then maybe this is not meant for me.
Mhm.
But you're proof that you just you just you were determined to make it
Mhm.
happen. And so
Mhm.
I love that you shared that story because it honestly makes you human, it makes you,
Mhm.
instead of being shameful to yourself, it's like, no, look at what I did. It's
Mhm.
like I surpassed something that most people would have just given up on. So I love that. And
Well,
and
I
and
appreciate that.
yeah, I think it holds so much value in your persistence in making it happen, and your determination in making it happen and not giving up. I mean,
True.
and I can see someone after their, second, no, it's not meant for me. I'm going to go in a different
Mhm.
direction. So,
Mhm.
thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one
Mhm.
that is glad that you shared that. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Um,
Well, that's
okay.
the
So you
goal.
pat,
That's the goal to
yeah,
inspire, especially the newer nurses, because
yeah.
uh, and rightfully so, you can't practice without the passing of the NCLEX. But I don't know if people really understand the stressors that
Hmm.
goes along with preparing for the test, not just making sure you pass, but then in the back of your mind is always that concern and fear.
Hmm.
What if I don't?
What
And
if
your
I don't?
peers
Yeah.
and friends are have passed and you haven't. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's very heavy. It's a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
for a 21 or 22-year-old to handle at such a young age of life.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
It's a
you
lot.
said it is. It's not only is it the pressure of taking the test again, but it is the pressure of having, everyone surpass you, and you're thinking, wait a minute, what did I do wrong here? I've
Mhm.
done everything I possibly could, and that just wasn't your story. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how I look at it, and I say this
True.
too because my oldest daughter is in the process of applying for nursing school in a program that
Oh, good.
very accelerated. And she graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology last year in Arizona, and she's coming home and she's going to go to school. So, so story, who knows what her experience is going to be like when she
Mhm.
finishes, but it's really nice to hear, you know, um, just how everyone does it different, or their journey is a little bit different, but it's still, you still end up in the same place, you know
Yes. True.
oh that's
Absolutely.
flaring. It's like, okay, just like I got my bachelor's degree in something else, and and then I ended up in nursing school. It's
Mhm.
like, shoot, I should have cut all of that out before I got there. But no, that wasn't that's my story. I mean,
True.
everybody has their
True.
own struggles and challenges, but we all end up in the same place. Here we are.
That is
So,
true.
all right. So you passed your NCLEX, and you did you know what specialty you wanted to be in?
Cardiology, actually cardiovascular, the CVT. So
Mhm.
the ICU. We had the
Mhm.
ICU step down. Um, Now it's called still step down. Some areas, some regions is called step down. Some areas called progressive care unit.
Mhm.
Coming from the cardiovascular intensive care unit. But I did dabble in that area for a while. I loved it. That was a very high pace, very stressed, but I really enjoyed that piece of it as well. So I
Mhm.
did that for a while, and then they did some realignment and some restructuring, and then I moved to the step down. And
Mhm.
then I did that for a few more years, and then I did traveling nursing, and that's how I
Mhm.
moved to South Carolina.
I see. I see. Okay. What I like to ask this question because we have a lot of people that had done it's very interesting. I think if we were to poll the legal nurses that I've talked to, and we were to have asked if they did travel in their nursing journey, I would say that the majority of those people that I spoke to that are legal nurses now did traveling. I am the exception. I did not, but it was something that I I always wanted to do, including now. I'm still clinically active, and I still kind of dream of those days. Um, so what got you to travel? What was the selling point for you to take on a traveling position?
Traveling the world and still getting paid
Yeah,
as a nurse.
yeah,
hmm
yeah.
To me, when you're young, you have both worlds. So you were still able to travel, see different parts of the country, and still have your career. So I'm thinking
Yeah.
that's a win-win. So I always encourage younger nurses who have the capability of traveling, definitely
Mhm,
travel for sure. I
mhm,
think it's one of the
mhm,
best experiences ever. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the profession. You learn what you do not like, what you won't tolerate, what you can tolerate. And you
yeah,
pretty
for
much
sure.
get the opportunity just to say, I've traveled to a lot of these cities and states. So now you can say, I would like to set my roots in this particular city and state. So it's a
Right.
win-win situation for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so did you travel a bunch before you ended up in South Carolina? What did that look like for you?
So all of my travel was here in the state. I tried for several assignments to leave the state, but it never panned out. It never worked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
And
was
it
meant to be.
actually it was meant to be. I didn't realize I was going to be in a permanent
Yeah,
party here,
yeah.
but yeah, it was really nice. I met some really nice um, colleagues, now are friends, and we're still after over 2 decades and a half.
Mm-hmm.
We're still good friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was definitely interesting coming from a cold climate, northern to a southern
Sure.
state region. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I still do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, clearly, I mean,
hmm
you would have still left if you did not. So there was always a
Absolutely
way for you to go back. So
true,
something
true,
kept you there. Yeah. Yeah.
true,
Okay.
true.
So you traveled in the same specialty, or did you kind of mix it up a bit, or what
I
did that look
did. I
like?
mixed it up, so added a little bit more twisting to my story. I joined the military. I joined the Army as a reservist.
Wow.
I
Okay.
did that for 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I started working in trauma. So I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the trauma ICU. Had my trauma certification. Worked at a level one
Mm-hmm.
trauma for many, many years, and then 9/11 took place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was mobilized to Fort Bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back after my 1 year mobilization assignment, we got pregnant and had our daughter, and then things changed. I didn't want to work the 12-hour night shift anymore,
Right.
and so then yeah, things shifted for sure.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So that's a nice little piece of your story that not everyone has, that you went into the reserves. I actually have a colleague that actually I should say more than one colleague. I don't know what it was. Is got word got out. One colleague decided to go to the reserves, and then another. I think there are about three of them now that decided to take that route recently. So I find that interesting.
hmm
Um, and was it something that I'm sure you're going to say yes. Was it something that you are really glad that you did? Was it a great experience? Was it,
It was. I absolutely
yeah.
loved it. I always wanted to be an army nurse. So after
Mm.
high school, I wanted to join the army. Back then, I was overweight. I used to weigh 300 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
So
Okay.
I just wasn't physically
Yeah.
fit
Sure. Yeah. Didn't fit the
for the
mold.
army. I didn't. I didn't. And back then, they were very particular. They would
Mm-hmm.
put you on this
Oh yeah.
extreme diet, and the
Mm.
recruiter said, no, you have to lose at least 100 plus pounds and then come back. So I'm like,
Ah.
okay. So then, so that wasn't an option anymore. And then, of course, I went to a 4 year baccalaureate program. But yeah, I,
Yeah.
I totally enjoyed my army career. I
Yeah.
loved it. I absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning.
Yeah.
I felt like Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn some days.
It's
But
where that
eventually,
fake it till you make it comes in, I suppose.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then eventually you learn. That's one thing
Yeah.
about the military. No matter what branch
Uh,
you're in, you
yeah.
have to conform. And so
Right.
I learned that early on. And
Mm.
you meet some really nice individuals who will show you the ropes. And yeah, it was a phenomenal career. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. I love that. See, you have all sorts of gems
Mhm.
in your story. I love this. Yeah. A little bit here and a little bit there. Like, oh my gosh, this is so
True,
cool. Um,
true.
okay, so you end up you did 8 years, right? You said, and then no more. You come back and you're a mom. You don't want to work the 12-hour nights, so you kind of down as that happened and kind of did mom things and worked your nursing shift. Yeah.
I did. I went part time after I had
Uh-huh.
our daughter. It was
Hmm.
challenging. It was very
Yeah.
challenging. And I did reserves for the first 2 years of her life. That was very challenging.
I see.
Being a new mother, still in the military
Yeah.
as a weekend warrior, as we call it, and
Right.
working. So I went part time,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was very challenging to manage it
Yeah.
all. Manage
Sure.
it all
Sure.
for sure. Yes.
Sure. Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Um, when did legal nursing come in play in this? Did it
I
come into play much later, or kind of did you know about it? Because it's always interesting to hear like the transition into this era. You know.
True. So I started getting flyers and little postcards from Vicky Milazzo program back in
Yep.
2012, 2013. But I had
Okay.
already started my PhD program. So I'm like, this sounds
See.
really interesting, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do both.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to myself, once I'm done, once I defend my dissertation, I'm going to start this.
Mm.
And so after my doctoral program, I defended my PhD. I started. So I graduated, I defended
And
in
then started a
2021.
whole new journey.
And
Yeah.
then in 2022, I started my business.
Yeah. Okay, let's back up a little bit on this PhD. Now, we kind of skipped over this, and I didn't realize that, and I apologize because this is important. I think it's important because I love the subject comes up actually weekly in my own life about investing in your education, right? Investing in my kids' education, investing in my own education. I find it so incredibly important and worth every penny. So clearly, you've invested in your education and you got your master's and then you
I
got your
did.
PhD. Okay, what was your master's in?
It was in nursing. It was in nursing
Okay.
education. Yep, an
Okay. Did you
MSN
want to go
in
into
education.
leadership or education? Is that what was the reason
Education,
why you
I enjoyed the education piece of it.
uh,
So I I figured education because that's one thing that we will always do as nurses. We always teach,
mhm,
we always educate. I knew
right.
I could do adjunct, or if I wanted to do as a professor,
Mhm,
working at a collegiate level.
mhm,
So there were options there, but one of the reasons, the main reason for the MSN with a specialization in education, because that's what we do. Everything that
yeah,
we do is around teaching,
right.
whether it's teaching the patient, whether it's teaching their family member, whether it's teaching each other. So yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Okay. And then you decided I'm going to go take this further and get my
I
PhD.
did. So I
Okay, what
did.
was
So
the
I
drive in that?
graduated.
Yeah.
I graduated in May with my master's, and then that January I started my
My goodness.
PhD
Yeah.
program. I didn't have
Wow.
that much of a time off. And I think
Hmm.
one of the main reasons why I continue my higher education is because I failed my NCLEX so many times.
It
And
makes sense.
I always
Yeah.
want to stay I always want to stay current on learning
Sure.
in nursing and
Sure.
medicine.
Sure.
And now if I pass my NCLEX the first time, would I be that eager? I don't know. But I know
Right.
that contributes a lot for me to continue to constantly get certifications, the terminal degree, the PhD. So yeah, that contributes a lot for my trajectory in nursing for sure.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. Yeah. It's like I'm going to just
Mhm.
overshoot this now. We're going to do it
Yes,
all. Because
yes,
yeah, and I get it. And then you enjoy the accomplishment, right? It's like you've
yes,
accomplished all of these things. I It makes complete sense. So
yes,
then you defend your PhD, and you go, okay, I'm going to go into legal nursing, which is also a pattern here. We're like on to learning new things, and I can relate to this clearly. My behind me, I've got books after
yes.
books, and now I
Hmm.
didn't take the higher education route. I took the business leadership education on my own, jumping, and we can call it whatever education is. But I
Hmm.
I can relate to that because I once I put something down, I'm ready for the next thing to learn, to learn, to learn, to learn. And I'm completely obsessed with documentaries for that reason. So I can appreciate the importance, or the, I don't know, the accomplishment of learning more in your field. So
Hmm.
you decided to go into legal nursing. What was the reason why? Now that you've already completed all of this higher education, why did you go down this road?
I went down this road. So when I was pregnant with our daughter, we were in a major car accident. And I
Mm,
remember contacting an attorney here in my city, and they were very helpful. The case manager um, met us at the office, just generally seemed concerned because I was pregnant. I was about between 13 and 15 weeks pregnant. We were hit by
mm.
18 wheeler.
Oh my goodness.
And I really enjoyed that. And I remember asking questions because the case manager, I said, "Are you a nurse? Do you have a medical background?" And she said, "No." We learned a little bit of the medical terminology and things like that. I just thought it was very fascinating.
Mhm.
And so I always wondered, wow, just imagine what I could do with the clinical um, knowledge in my education. So I married both, and I
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. And here you are.
and here I
That's
am.
that's wonderful. I love it. So we've taken this very long journey, and here you are, and you jumped in with both feet, I imagine, right?
I did.
And how did you? What did that look? I haven't asked this question in a while, about how that initial jump into this field looked like for you. Were you qualified to do it? Did you already have some connections? Did you already have a plan on how you're going to, acquire your first case? What did that look like to you?
I had no plan. I had no idea how to navigate this new world.
Yeah.
And I just knew that's something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things about the legal nurse community is we have so many well seasoned legal nurse consultants out there in our community that are so helpful, so generous with their time and their knowledge. And I just started doing. going into LinkedIn. I started joining some Facebook groups, and I would just read behind the scenes and just pay attention and take notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came across AALNC,
Mm-hmm.
and I reached out, and they were just the most generous group of nurses. And from there, I just started taking some classes and some courses and learning, asking questions and emailing and picking people's
Mm-hmm.
brains.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say, I think that a lot of that education prior to you getting there has a lot to do with your success as well, because you're determined and you knew how to, connect with the right people and to ask the right questions, right? And to take the right
Hmm.
steps and really just kind of um, guide yourself into, what's next in how to market yourself, and everything you said, I can relate to how I jumped in as well. It was like connect with the community and really, get to know them and those seasoned
Hmm.
ones, and they do it and listen and like kind of read between the lines and understand, and
Exactly.
then implement. So for implement, what did you find that as a challenge, or were you just like, oh nope, I've got this?
No, it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge because you just have to learn how the attorneys think and how they handle their cases, and different cases require different thought processes. So I've always
Hmm.
done medical malpractice. So I
Hmm.
find that to be very enjoyable, being still
Hmm.
clinical. I can relate to a lot of the clinical aspects. So
Hmm.
initially, when I first started, I wasn't a testifying expert. I was doing behind the scenes,
Hmm.
and I don't remember, someone mentioned you should do expert. You would do really, really well. And I'm like, okay, I'll look
Hmm.
into that. So I did a little bit of
Hmm.
research. And as I researched that, as I'm researching, I'm saying, yes, I can do this. I can do this.
Hmm.
I want to go to
Hmm.
trial. I remember saying that out loud. I would love to
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
trial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Says
And
nobody. No, I'm just kidding.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, and it just started to just align with that, and just showing up and asking questions and reciprocating things back to the community,
Right.
for sure. Yeah,
Right.
very nice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's wonderful. So you are still working clinically, you said?
I am.
You are still
Hmm.
working clinically. And I know I love that you share things on your LinkedIn that are based on your specialty. So it's you are definitely the expert in that field, which is great, and it shows,
Hmm.
and it's valuable information. And I know when I first started doing it, I was the same way. I'm working behind the scenes, and then I thought, well, maybe I should do expert work. I've been doing this forever. I'm still working clinically. Why not? Let's just put our name in the hat. Very first case went to trial. So I was like, and then 5 minutes after off the stand, someone asked me, because I had texted, I'm done. And they said, would you do it again? And I go, ask me in a week. And sure enough, once I could breathe again, I said yes, yes, because this
Hmm.
is just, you've been doing it for so long. It's
Hmm.
just so natural to educate in your specialty. You know it so well.
True. True.
You've handled how many patients over the years,
Hmm.
that it is only natural to want to educate people to your specialty. I know that's how I feel about my specialty, is that I want everybody to know about it, because it's a
Hmm.
mystery. So
True.
it's an opportunity to educate those that don't understand it, in a
True.
particular story or case or, patient.
True.
So I can relate to that though. At first, I was like, I don't. Now I'm like, yeah, of course, it makes complete sense.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so what advice? Because I do have a lot of um, legal nurses or nurses that are looking into lately. A lot of nurses looking into going into this field. And they don't know
Hmm.
where to start.
True.
What
True.
advice would you give them on how to? I mean, clearly they're smart because they're nurses and they continue their legacy in a different way. So
True.
what would you tell them? What advice to get started?
My first piece of advice, I would highly recommend that they join AALNC for
Mhm.
sure, because you need that community, you need like minded people. And if they join, the second part is join a lot of the legal nurse consulting Facebook groups
Mhm.
and just start writing down notes in the notebook and categorize them. Like I put everything in a category. So I have category A, category B, category C. That's what I did. So whenever someone would post, I would jot down some
Mhm.
comments for each category. And that
Mhm.
way you're doing your own market research with the Facebook groups. And then eventually um, you will start to understand the flow and the logistics and the process, because that's a different mindset. Understand the logistics, the process, whether you're going to subcontract, whether you're going to do expert work, whether you're going to do behind the scenes, whether you're going to have your own business. So there's so many pieces and
Sure.
dynamics and factors, moving parts to being a legal nurse consulting. And then they have to find out which piece gives them that passion, brings that passion. Because if you have the passion, you will really enjoy it. So expert work may not be enjoyable. They may like, this is not for me right now. But then they have to learn how to do the report writing and things like that. So I had to invest in some
Mhm.
courses. You will have to
Mhm.
invest in some courses. So that will be another piece of advice. Be prepared to invest in some course writings. Definitely vet the programs so
Mhm.
you make sure you get a valuable, measurable outcome from those courses for sure.
Right.
And have patience with yourself. Give yourself grace.
Yes.
Uh, yes, for sure. You have to give yourself grace because it's not going to be immediately overnight. It may be 6 months
Yeah.
to a year
Yeah.
easily.
I think that's great. Yeah. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
I
that
think
will
that's
be my
really
pieces of
great.
advice.
Yeah, I think that that's such great advice. I think that I love that you had categorized things because as soon as you said that, I said, "Did I do something like that?" I bet you I have a notebook that I had tried to keep things in order, and it was probably similar to that
Hmm.
because I think for me and maybe for you as well, it was so interesting to see how many just thing, right? There's so many different specialties. But in legal
Hmm.
nursing, there are so many different avenues that you can take. Like you said, do you
True.
want to subcontract? Do you want to have your own business? Do you want to do expert work? Those things I didn't know ahead of time. Like, wow, you can actually do, if you don't want to do expert work, you don't have to do expert work. You can solely do what you want to do, which is very
Hmm.
similar to what we're used to in specialties. So, um,
True.
I love that. And actually, um, it, in saying, how do you take that leap into your first case? Well, that first case can be anything. That first case can be a subcontracting case, can be your own
Yes.
case, can be
Hmm.
a shadow of a case. It really can be what you make it. And as you were saying that, I was thinking there is no one way to jump off the cliff with this. It's just,
True.
you just follow your heart, follow your gut, and then I think for me, I know sometimes it's just like we said, well, maybe expert work's not for me, and then you take a pivot and say, okay, no, this is actually for me.
Hmm.
um there is no wrong way. You just take a step forward.
True.
And then that step forward will lead you to the next step, will lead you to the next step, will lead you to the next step, and you never know where you end up. And I think that for me,
True.
that's what I've seen, and after talking to so many people on this podcast is what we think in the beginning or what we envision it to be like, maybe something totally different than what we end up having our business be like, I mean,
True.
which is a great thing. It just gives you so many options. That's how
that is true. I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you share that. Okay. Well, I could talk to you honestly and talk all things nursing and traveling and education and everything. But I won't. I will keep you from having to talk to me all day. So would you share with everyone where they can find you? And every person that does this podcast has an influx of messages after the podcast airs, and I'm sure that you're the same. So please share it with everyone where they can find you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Anna. So I'm on LinkedIn, cardiac nurse expert Yvette Twum-Danso. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so they can always find me there for sure.
Perfect. And make sure to check out Yvette's content on LinkedIn. Share her content, and you're always you always have a shiny. It emanates through your post, your personality. I don't know how else to explain that, but like you can tell that you're smiling when you post. That's what I wanted to say.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
True. So make sure you connect with Yvette over there. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. This has been nice.
And absolutely. And all of that information will be in the show notes, so they'll be able to click on it and find you. And I appreciate your time and you sharing your story with me. And, everybody that told me I needed to connect with you was absolutely right. And I'm really glad that we did here. And I look forward to staying connected in the future. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was an honor. This was fun. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.